Good morning. This is Daniel. Park it, and let's talk about it. Who are you also stated, who am I? Now think about this. Who are you? Everyone struggles with this external question. Who am I? And what do I want for my future self to be? One reason why, maybe, that the answer is very complex. The answer to this question has wondering, how can a person be so many to so many? To some, you're a son or a daughter. To others, you're a mom or a dad, a friend, maybe an enemy, aunt or an uncle, child, grandchild, cousin, roommate, teacher, professor, student, step-parent, parent, husband or wife, manager, employee, servant, owner, or according to even government agencies, you're a number. In Genesis 18:27, Abraham answered and said, "Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. I, who am but dust and ashes." Abraham dissolved it down to the bare basics. You're right. You are dust and ashes. And then became, with the breath of God, Genesis 2, chapter 7, a living consciousness, or a being. And that's actually who your I am is. It is the consciousness that you became. When you ask the question, it places you in really good company. Like Moses, Abraham, David, King Saul, King David in the Psalms. Interesting, a favorite band I listen to called Casting Crowns. Who am I, that the Lord of all the earth, who would care to know my name, would care to feel my hurt? Who am I, that a bright and morning star would choose to light the way for my ever-wandering heart? It is not because of who I am, but because of what you have done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower, quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow, a wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still, you hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling. Lord, you told me who I am. I am yours. I am yours. Now, thank you to Casting Crowns for putting these lyrics together. They're amazing. And just think about it next time you hear it. That's only like verse 1 and the chorus, briefly through it. I didn't want to look at the whole thing. I would encourage you to take a look at it. Now, when you are making your who am I thoughts, statement, writings, whatever, however you handle this, it's important to probably, like Jesus, for example, okay? Jesus looked at what he was. He says, I am the bread of life. That's substance, right? I am the light of the world. A light is a guide. I'm the door or the way in. Do you have the answers, of the way of salvation, of where you were and where you are now? I'm the good shepherd. A shepherd is all that we've already mentioned, but he's also a protector. He's also disciplined. He's also concerned. He's bought in. He's invested. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. He's resilient and alive. He says, I am the truth and the life, which is the direction I follow. I'm the true vine. What is a vine more than the supplier and the source? See, Jesus identified himself with the who am I statement. He says, I am all of this. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the truth and the life. I am the true vine. This is how Jesus identified Jesus, the flesh where God resided. The Spirit of God resided there. Just like in your life, the Spirit of God, we're going to hope, resides there. Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 4:18. He said, one person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to his toil. And his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for who am I toiling or depriving myself pleasure of? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. For who am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This guy's got everything. Everything. He still has more pleasure. Who is he depriving himself of personal pleasure? You starve the flesh so the spirit may grow. Makes sense to me. Asking who am I implies a person can only be one fixed thing. A belief in which only causes more anxiety. A better question to ask instead of who am I is how would I like to engage life? Believing that one has complete self-knowledge and not knowing oneself at all are both states of limited growth. There are many of identities for a person to claim these days. The internet offers people many ways to add to their who am I statement. So be careful where you gather your information for deciding who you are and how you represent your life or this life. There's plenty of opportunity to misrepresent. There's plenty of opportunity to get it wrong. I have found in many thought processes or lifestyles with certain people is they identify their self by what they do. I knew a gentleman one time, and if you ask his children what he did, he was a manager somewhere. But 4 days a week, he was also a youth pastor. The family didn't identify him by his pastorate. They identified him by what he did professionally. If you are what you do, and you identify by just your actions, then people will tend to categorize you that way. And they will consider that because you do such things, others of similar thought will do exactly the same. Where they're right, possibly their assumption of who you are based on your actions could be incorrect. We are constantly evolving. Okay? This question, asked so often, suggests that there is actually a plausible answer, almost as if our being were not a fixed thing. People who ask this sort of question are typically struggling with their identity and are searching for a core sense of themselves. The irony is that the more you seek to identify who you are, the more fragile you are likely to feel about yourself. There may be an inverse correlation between the questions being asked and the ease with which you are experiencing life. What is your identity more than how you see yourself to others? Remember what we listed earlier, the list, about 15 items? If you are a parent of an offspring, you're possibly a mother or a father. If you are related to those individuals, you could be a cousin, you could be an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent. So identifying where you fit in that individual's life, you may be the one that they come to for wisdom. You may be the one they come to for knowledge. You may be the one they come to for food and shelter. It's based on how they see you. Identity encompasses the memories, experiences, relationships, and values to create one's sense of self. The amalgamation creates a steady sense of who one is over time, even as new facets are developed and incorporated into one's identity. Identity information involves three key tasks. discovering and developing one's potential, choosing one's potential in life, and finding opportunities to exercise that potential and purpose. Identity is also influenced by parents and peers during childhood and experimentation during adolescence. Features of identity can highlight similarities between different people through race, gender, or profession, which can function to either unite or divide. People who view themselves as a member of a larger, overreaching group tend to have stronger kinship with other people, animals, and nature. Teachers and professors can be a part of the formation of someone's I am statement, who am I statement. When I was younger, I recall sitting in a meeting with several teachers and my mom. Dad was on the road, gone quite frequently. The teachers kept telling Mom that I had a learning disability. My reading and spelling and handwriting and even math were not up to the expectations of those grades, and they were areas I had issues. I'm just curious. Thanks to these teachers, and I adapted this identity into my life, and I lived it. This meant C's, D's, and F's in all of those subjects all the way through high school. These were all critical life skills that I look back on seeing now and wish that I would have taken a different angle at. I'm wondering if when we're told at young ages that we have disabilities, that those become part of our programming. Looking back, I would ask, what would life have looked like if these supposedly educated individuals who supposedly cared about their students, if these individuals wouldn't have spoken that identity or communicated that identity into my parents and how they saw me, how I was treated, and to myself? Not shifting blame, just curious how life would have turned out. Because I know many parents these days, not these days, but many days, that as soon as a teacher says something negative about their child, they adapt that into the child's identity. When we speak about a person in a negative way, I believe those words have a way of programming everyone to at least consider all of the negative statements. And then we go on treating a person in that way. And because the negative is in there, there's a chance of the relationship being tainted. This is why any and all gossip, talking about people behind their back, is so damaging. You know what you said. Now the next time you're around them, you've programmed that into your head so many times by your responses. If you look at someone and say, or think, what's wrong with you? You're programming yourself to see what's wrong with that person. When the statement is made, it is an attack statement that even when nothing is wrong with the person, now they consider, is there something wrong with me? Did I do or say something wrong? Legally speaking, I believe this is called defamation of character. What if we looked at ourselves and in consideration of our identity, we opted to use what the Bible actually calls us? Let's look at 10 statements of what the Bible calls us. It says, I am worthy, I am forgiven, I am blessed, I am saved, I am smart, I'm a child of God, I'm loved, I'm chosen, I'm able to do more than I ever imagined. Not exactly that. I'm called by name. What about I will do more than I ever imagined? Because didn't Jesus say that greater works will you do? So who am I? When you're answering that who am I statement, be careful what information that you allow to guide this. You have to use God's word. If you're going to call yourself a child of God, and you're going to be aligned and represent and be the light of God, you've got to use God's word. Also use those who offer positive statements to grow and guide these answers. If somebody doesn't like your hair color, that is completely their issue. Don't let that taint how you see you. If you recognize that somebody does something different than you, says something different than you, is there something wrong with them? If you want to call them out on that, ask yourself first, am I possibly the one that's out of alignment? Or is it just something new information that I didn't know? How will anyone help somebody else answer their who am I statement if they cannot answer this question for themselves? How about the who do you say I am? It could also be stated, who do you need me to be to you? In Mark 8:29, we find this particular statement. It says, but what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? Peter. He says, you are the Messiah. Thinking out loud here. Do you believe that Peter needed a Messiah? I think he kind of considered it. Otherwise, I don't believe he would have called it out like that. Now, when you ask who I am, in the context of your current situation, the context must take precedence. Only then can you ever properly respond. When I, as a sinner, let's say I identify I'm a sinner. I'm just a sinner. I sin all the time, right? Now, in that sin, I do exactly cognitively what I know is wrong. Whatever that may be. And then, over time, I learn ways of not to do those things. I redevelop new pathways of not to do particular things, or the desire of whatever those things have left my being, okay? Now, when I run around and talk about what I did in the past, I'm boasting. First, I'm talking about it, which is boasting, right? Aren't we told in the scriptures that if I boast, let me boast in my weakness? Now, Paul, who also writes 2 Corinthians 5:17, he writes a few times that he's not just a sinner, he's one of the greatest sinners, okay, in his past. That was the guy named Saul. Saul became Paul. He also wrote 2 Corinthians 5:17, where it says, for those who believe, all things are new. They are a new creature through Christ. So now if I'm talking about this old dead person, I'm bringing him back to life, right? Now, if I have to boast, I'm told to boast into my weakness. I once was lost, but now I'm found. My weakness was maybe I was an alcoholic at that time. I was an abuser at that time. Maybe sexual issues at that time. Defiant to parents at that time. That's boast about my weakness. But now as I grew up, as I got stronger, as I saw my faults and my failures, I corrected my ways, and I no longer have desire to be that. I point light to God, to Christ, who brought me out of that. Speaking life brings life. Thinking life brings life also. It just brings it slower. The words we've talked about so many times are a reflection of what's on the inside. It's also part of the I am statement. You ever meet a vegetarian? All you got to do is invite a vegetarian out for dinner, and you will know they're a vegetarian within the first few minutes of that menu getting there. At least the waitress is going to find out. I'm a vegan. They don't identify by their name, their religion, their education, their profession. I've met some people who live in a homosexual lifestyle, and they'll put their hand out and introduce by their first name, and then come out with almost immediately that they're of that preference. So this is now built into their identity of who I am. I am this, and I am a vegan. I am that. I am this name or that. My name is Daniel, and I am a soldier. I am a vet. When I lead with that, it's the most important thing. The most important. I've never met a doctor, my surgeon, met him, talked to him many, many times. All right? He never put his hand out and said, I am so-and-so. I am your surgeon. I am a doctor. I knew he was a doctor. Not just by what he wore, by his reputation. This gentleman who was a pastor, or in a pastorate as a youth pastor, assistant pastor, something like that. But also was a manager of his career. As I got to know, I found out that he was more living what a management lifestyle would be in his home than he was living what a pastorate or youth pastorate lifestyle would be. Just through getting to know the guy. And I believe this is why his children living at home would refer to him by his profession and not by spiritual calling. When we're looking at a who I am statement, it's not what you do, it's who you are. Who you are is completely separate from that. Sure, you do it 8 hours, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. For example, my wife, she's a fitness instructor. She won't come up and shake your hand and say, "Hi, I'm a fitness instructor." No. You'll know what she does by how she's built, by her energy. Now, in conversation and getting to know her, you'll find out that she works at a fitness facility and teaches group fitness. And people are there for that purpose. She doesn't lead with it. She doesn't have to. Remember this. When your light shines, so Christ may shine, it's not forced. When you see a changed life, you see a person who's converted, a convert. A convert will no longer resemble the old person. When you're converted by Christ's life and his light, this light also will shine freely. You won't have to force it. You won't have to talk about it. It'll be in the voice tone. It'll be in your smile. It'll be in your eyes, in your mannerisms, in your responses. It will not just be in your conscious, but the who I am through Christ, the new creation, 2 Corinthians 5:17, new person, will be in your everything. Thanks for joining us today. This is Daniel with Park Talks. Be blessed, everyone.